Good morning. One is a global advocacy organization that campaigns for debt cancellation, development assistance, increased trade and investment for Africa and other poor countries. I first and foremost want to thank Senator Feingold, Representatives Payne and Lozman for improved global health. The successes of the programs have prevented millions of deaths and inspired Americans, Africans, importantly, Congress, to continue to increase funding for these programs. Without these successes, those continued increases might not happen. Also, one's roots are split between Washington and London, so I want to be sure to thank Sarah Brown for her leadership on global health, particularly on maternal health, an issue which has not received the same attention as malaria or some of the other issues that we talk about often. It's always good to be reminded of all the other things that are out there that we're not getting to yet. I think it's important to point out that in the midst of this financial crisis, the UK's Prime Minister Brown's budget yesterday for development that was released reminds us why the US and the UK are considered leaders in the fight for improved global health worldwide. It's a great partnership that's delivered a lot of these results, and I want to recognize that. So to the topic at hand. Malaria is a disease whose impact transcends sectors. Most of us in this room know that. It's not just a global health issue, it's an economic development issue. And right now, that's more important than ever before. On a macro level, malaria costs sub-Saharan Africa an estimated $12 billion in lost economic productivity, investment, trade, tourism, et cetera, and it leads to a loss of 1.3% of GDP in Africa per year. Here's one reason of why that happens. So about 2/3 of people in Africa are employed by the agricultural sector. If anyone, which I know a lot of us in this room have cared for someone with malaria, have had malaria yourself, you know that it's hard to cope with that disease, to function with that disease, just recovering alone. Now imagine having to go out in a field every day and work while you're trying to recover. It doesn't happen, and that is a big cost to Africa's GDP and to families' GDP, maybe more importantly. So if this disease causes a 1.3% decline in GDP, and we just learned this week that Africa's GDP growth is likely to shrink to about 1.5% this year, you can see the gross impact of this disease on the continent. Africa didn't play a significant role in creating this global crisis, but they're certainly bearing significant burdens as a result of this. It's going to constrain governments' abilities on the continent to spend scarce domestic resources on health in fighting this disease. And it's one of the reasons why right now, more than ever, we need donors to continue to invest in fighting this disease. It's not an expensive thing to fight, and there's a great plan to see us to the end, to eliminating deaths from this disease. The high watermark for funding that we'll need to fight this disease, according to the Malaria Action Plan, is $6.2 billion in 2010. And then it actually starts to decline after that. But we need to get there. We're quite a ways from that number yet, so there's a significant funding gap. But we know the mechanisms that work. The Global Fund, the World Bank's Malaria Booster Program, the President's Malaria Initiative here in the US, they work, they're transparent, they're accountable, they're efficient, they've delivered results. And it's the collective success of these programs that should ignite donors to fill this funding gap and lead us to a day where this lofty goal of ending malaria deaths becomes a reality that saves millions of more lives.